I don't have this approach where I want to build a global brand, but I want to enjoy doing it. And,
Mm.
I'm not just trying to get there and go, right, I've done it. Because, there's been moments where, when we first sold to Nordstrom, everyone was celebrating around me and like, oh man, Vince, you're killing it. And you're, doing this. And it's like, man, like we're struggling to
Mm.
survive at this point. This was 3 years
Mhm.
in, right? And it looked great, but I was like, okay, I don't want to just build a brand. I want to build a profitable brand that's sustainable.
Welcome to the EO Business Podcast, where we uncover the stories behind bold ideas, brave moves, and the entrepreneurs who make them happen. I am your host, Linh Podetti, and today's episode features an entrepreneur who built a globally recognized brand from the ground up. Vince Lebon, an EO Melbourne member, founder and designer behind Rollie Nation. Vince's journey began with a clear vision to create lightweight, travel-friendly shoes that didn't compromise on style or comfort, inspired by his wife, a flight attendant. That vision has since evolved into a brand now sold in over 11 countries around the world. In this conversation, we unpack the real story behind going global, from selling out at a pop-up market in Melbourne to breaking into the US and European markets, managing international supply chains, refining wholesale strategies, and scaling sustainably without burning out. If you're thinking about expanding internationally or want an honest look at what it takes to grow a brand that resonates across borders, this one's for you. Here's my chat with Vince.
This episode is sponsored by Outsourcing Angel, your partner for skilled offshore staff in LinkedIn marketing, lead generation, customer support, and more. As a social enterprise, we donate 10% of profits to charity and provide heart-centered VAs who go the extra mile for your success. Visit outsourcingangel.com.
Welcome to the show, Vince. So great to have you here.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
It was really interesting to read the company name and where you got it from. You named it after your wife. So let's start with the story of how you got started and launched this shoe business of yours.
Cool. Yeah, it's been a while now. About 13 years ago, I decided to launch Rollie. I'd been in the industry for 10 years and just felt like it was time to launch my own thing, really. So I worked on the business model for about 6 months and then worked on the actual product for 6 months. So it took 12 months from the idea to coming to life. And yeah, I haven't looked back, really.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the naming of it. Was
Mhm.
it really easy to come up with that name, or was it a bit of a, deliberation on what the name was? Yeah.
I'd played around with a few names, but that was because when I was working on the model, I had two different businesses that I was thinking about. Um, and yeah, played around with a few, and then Rollie was my wife's nickname. And like I said, I didn't really call her Rollie too much. It was just like it was always her little passwords and things like that. It was like a little cute nickname for her. And I don't know why it just hit me. I was like, oh, that's it. It needs to be Rollie. And I said to her, what do you think? Um, and she goes, oh, I love it. I think it's great. It's 5 letters, really easy to say, didn't mean anything. So it was like Google, so it was just a cool
Yeah.
thing. And it felt like a really nice tribute to her without people knowing it was about her.
Yeah.
And then when I linked in, because it came about when I was playing around with sort of the idea of going, I want it to be super lightweight shoes that when she's traveling. So it was sort of spawned by the idea of her and how she'd use them. And then I thought, well, why don't we just name it after her?
Mm. Yeah.
And then we added Nation to it because I really wanted it to be something bigger than me and I wanted it to be about community.
Oh, I love that. I'm sure she loves it because it's pretty much
Yeah.
named and it shows a lot of love.
Totally.
Can you bring me back into how you would start a shoe business? If anyone wanted to start a business, like what does that look like? Was it you having to build your own prototype in Australia first, or was it straight away working with some manufacturing plants?
Well, for me, I'd been in the shoe business for 10 years prior, right? So
Mm,
I already had a lot of relationships. I knew the factories that could make it for me.
mm,
But I did it completely from scratch. So a lot of brands buy an original shoe and they copy it and they make some changes. And like that's a totally fine way to get a business up and running, particularly if you don't have a lot of experience in the footwear space. Uh,
mm,
but for me, I wanted my own shape, my own outsole. We did of course, our own patterns. Um, so yeah, I mean, I particularly when I started this brand, I started in Photoshop. when I got to the product. So I was really around just playing around with a couple of proportions. I wanted a really unique outsole. And so, yeah, I think we landed on, I was thinking about it being a white sole was the big thing, white sole, white laces. So it was visually super iconic when you saw it, because that was not common at all back then. Now you see them everywhere. And I really wanted it to be super lightweight. And so the lightweight, which linked into the story about my wife traveling around the world, I really wanted it to be, I really have always wanted to be less about the shoes and more about what you do in the shoes that matter.
So was this your first business or you've had businesses before?
I've technically had businesses before. I was a multimedia designer by trade, so I had a graphic design website business. I had done that for about basically the same time, 10 years. So I was always doing jobs on the side for web design. I've built a few file maker solutions, which were like systems-based, and I'd sold a few of those already. So yeah, it was cool. I felt like an entrepreneur for, ever since I got out of high school, really.
And what made this business, it felt like you were more confident with this. You're like, I want to name something. This is going to go big. Where was that conviction coming from?
I think because I had started a service-based business, I didn't want to build a business around me. And so, because I think being in web design, back then we were charging like almost 20 grand for websites. And that was it was a lot of money for a lot of people. And I had to always try to convince people why you needed a website. And, this is back when themes were all hand coded and, you could just embed fonts. So it was an interesting time, and I could only do the amount of work really that I could deal with myself. And, without, we didn't really have Upwork and things like that where it was easy to outsource. So yeah, I really just felt like it was time to, like I said, build my own footwear brand. And as soon as I decided, and then the website business was actually doing quite well, but it was just as soon as I decided I want to build my own brand, everything changed. It was like, I've got to invest a lot of money to get this thing up and running. And we grew very quickly out the gate.
And were you already passionate about the shoe industry before you worked in shoe, or was it because working in shoe kind of made you fall in love with shoes?
Yeah, no, I always had a love for shoes growing up. I mean, I played basketball, and the Jordans were the best thing ever. So, from the day my dad got me my first pair of Jordan 12s, that was it. Like, I always knew that there was a bigger meaning and purpose behind shoes. It was, it wasn't just about the shoes. It was about, trying to be like Michael Jordan, and what he was doing in the NBA was just, as a kid growing up, it was the most incredible time ever. And so that's where my love for shoes started. But I've always had like a curiosity for business, entrepreneurship, and just building things, like I can't help but look at something and go, oh, I wonder why they did it like that. Like, better if it was done this way. It's just the way my brain works, I guess.
And where did that entrepreneurial spirit come from? Were you in a family with entrepreneurs? Did you witness many entrepreneurs as you were growing up?
No, I didn't have anyone around me that was an entrepreneur. I think the closest thing is probably my dad, who I'd consider was an entrepreneur, right? Like, he had an entrepreneur mindset within the companies that he worked for. And my dad moved up very quickly in the ranks in his job. I remember he got 3 promotions in 1 year, and I was just like, wow, like, that was really impressive. And you could see that, we're first generation immigrants. And so just seeing him work up the scale in a company, and yeah, I think just the way he treats things, he's definitely, I think if he was born here, or spent most of his life here, he would have been an entrepreneur for sure.
Interesting. So you did mention that, you had contacts and you were in the industry, so it kind of helped with how to actually produce it or produce the products. How was it on the other end? How easy was it to get customers? I mean, you mentioned that it grew really fast. Can you explain a little bit about how you were able to launch and scale?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, the factory side was certainly much easier because of my existing relationships. When it came to dealing with customers, most of my experience was actually international. So prior to launching Rollie, the last 2 years, I had been selling globally with sort of really big big international players like Steve Madden and brands like that.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I guess when I first started, I thought I launched it in a pop-up shop in the South Melbourne market, nothing sexy.
Uh-huh.
But, it was a great way to get in front of people. We had 500 pairs and we sold all 500 pairs in less than 5 weeks. So, and in that time, I was meeting people, getting feedback, creating opportunities, and that really created a lot of opportunities with some wholesalers. And the very first wholesale account that I brought on was the world's largest shoe store in Dubai. So, yeah, like I said, it really just took off very quickly. It was extremely distinctive in the market because it was a menswear inspired shoe in female sizing. We also did men's too, but and in crazy colors, and it was super lightweight. That's something that people had not really considered before. And super comfortable. So it was just like I had so much going for it that I think it just really stopped people in their tracks and go, wow, this is something
Yeah.
different.
So it sounded like you must have done a lot of research into your client avatar, or you really know it really well. Would you be able to describe who you were designing these shoes originally for?
I was designing for people who are young at heart, right? So
Uh-huh.
it's an ageless group of people. It was really very much around an ethos, right? Someone who wanted to travel around the world, be exposed to different cultures, and not be held back by the weight in terms of literally the luggage from going from place to place, not being weighed down by having blisters and as they're walking through and traveling the world, creating an opportunity for people to stop and say, wow, those shoes are amazing. Where are they from? Because they're in crazy cool different colors. I think there were just so many different angles to what I was trying to build that it connected with so many people in so many different ways.
Did you have to do much storytelling to share what you've just shared with me through the branding, or was it really this, the success of it is that the shoe looks great and it was different style to what's in the market?
No, I mean, the shoe's just an outcome of the thinking, right?
Mm.
So, like, even when I talk about the shoe, it actually isn't the shoe that's important. It's the thinking that went to being disruptive around trying to anchor in, conversation through product I didn't do black when I first launched. People would think I'm crazy for not doing a black shoe. Black's my
Interesting.
number one color now, but I knew if you were wearing a black pair of shoes that was comfortable, no one would stop and ask where you got it from. And
Uh-huh.
the fact that we did yellow and pink and blue up front, people felt great that people were stopping and asking them where they got them from. And so, yeah, I think for me, even though I'm talking about the product, it's much, much bigger than the product. I built a brand, and I think what happened is, as we started getting a lot of success over the years, people tried to copy the product, but copying a shoe doesn't copy the brand, right? You see that all over the place. So it was very clear that this was a brand play and not a product play.
Interesting. So you were saying you went to the markets and you succeeded there, and then you went wholesaling. Did you stick with that wholesaling model for a while? And then, how did you now evolve
Yeah.
into retail as well?
Yeah, the plan was always to go wholesale first, even though I launched at a pop-up. Me launching at a pop-up was really just to get in front of people and see if it's something that people were really interested in. And then I could use that as leverage to communicate to retailers that, hey, we've sold this, people love it, it's doing really well. And so from that point, we started selling to Zomp, who was a really influential, iconic retailer in Australia. And she gave me a really hard time, which is a friend of mine, and she bought, two styles the first time. And I said, come on, can you give me some more? She goes, if these two do well, I'll give you 4. She then gave me 4. All right, cool, I've proven myself now. And she's like, no, give me 8. And then we did 8 and it kept selling. And then she goes, right, now you've got unlimited. And so then we were the number one brand in her store for a very long time. And so I think it was just really about, getting in front of people, passing on the feedback and the insight, because I think it was so different that it took people time. You have to give them time to understand that it felt like a risk. Like I said, now 13 years on, the product doesn't feel the same way, that particular style, but we're investing a lot in bringing that energy back around innovation and disruption to keep the ethos of the brand, You know, although people love the heritage product, which is amazing, we have to make sure that we stay disruptive because it's true to who we are.
Mm. And so obviously when you're starting out, it's you, it's your ethos. And as you're scaling, how do you ensure you pass that on to your team? Or if customers are still feeling that vibe, what do you do to nurture that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard because when you're small, you can influence, you know, the entire team because everyone's
Mm.
spending time, you know, if you've got 3 people, you know, you're spending 30% of your time with each of those people, right? The minute you get to 30 and 40, it's a much smaller part of your time that you're spending with them. And so, I mean, I learned that the hard way. You know, now I've got great systems in terms of like, you know, I've got a Rollie Way document. So when people first come in, there's like a 30-page document which communicates my frameworks and how I like to work and accountability and who we are as a business. But that only came through from the pain, you know, over the years. I remember there was a time when I moved to the States to try to grow the business there because when I first launched in America, which was about 4 years into the brand being built, you know, we did so well. I personally opened up 90 accounts in the first season when I was there, and we had Anthropology and Free People, and you know, we had stores in Japan that were buying it, and but the problem is like I was running myself to the ground. You know, it's all based off me, and we didn't have stock, so that the guy it sold very well, but they couldn't replenish, and we couldn't service the market properly. And spending all that time away meant people had less face time with me. So it really started to expose some of the holes in the business.
Mm.
But because of that, really great things came of it. So sometimes it's very hard to see the lessons that have come out of the pain when you're in there in the moment. But looking back, it's easy to go, okay, I can see why I value documentation so much and onboarding, or even just a hiring process to make sure that you know you get the right people in the business early.
Yeah. So let's dive a little bit more into that expansion.
Yeah.
So it was you coming, to America, doing all the deals yourself. What was missing for you? Why did you feel like you need to set up? And when you say set up, was it like an office or was it just finding people?
So I did it in 2 stages. So the very first time I went, I did an international trade show, which was the biggest international trade show in the States for footwear.
Mhm.
And I've always had this thing with trade shows that I want to create a beautiful booth experience, which showcases who we are as a brand. So it's super creative. Um, and I just need you to stop and look at the shoes and decide if it's for you. If it's not for you, it's totally fine, but I need you to stop and have a look. And I've been consistent with that throughout the entire brand. Um, when we did launch, we won the brand new exhibitor award. So there's I can't even remember how many, there's probably at least 10,000 brands there. So it's huge
Mhm.
in this massive convention center. And we won, the best new brand. And then the next year we won best booth designs.
Wow.
So yeah, so that was really cool. And you know, we did a lot of pre-work or before I got there. So we, you know, did a lot. We engaged a PR agency. We got also a lot of press, even not just, you know, D2C press, but also trade press. But I think, you know, once again, looking back and, you know, I was much younger than now. I think all the battle scars over the years, I could see that I was running really fast and just like pushing.
Mhm.
And although it looked like, you know, we were landing accounts and getting press, and what I had worked out is, you know, we got so much PR, but we weren't able to capitalize on it because we
Mm.
didn't have stock in retailers yet. So we
Mm.
had full-page spreads in Vogue magazine and winning all these awards, but it was harder to buy product because all our stock holding was here in Australia,
Mm.
and retailers only wanted to buy, you know, forward orders. But as soon as the product worked, they wanted replenishments very,
Mm.
very quickly, which we didn't have. So
So did you explore the 3PLs or warehouses that can store your product there?
yeah, that's right. So we then transitioned to a 3PL.
Mm.
But the thing with 3PLs is they're really great if you don't have so much product, different SKUs,
Mm.
and your systems have to be on point. And so we then scaled through that, and we just sort of had some challenges through there. So then in that time, I ended up I was part of a reality TV show in the States
Ah,
that I ended up winning.
oh wow. What was it called?
It's called Lace Up. It's a sneaker design show.
Okay, very, yeah, yeah.
Basically Project Runway,
Mm,
or America's Next Top Model, but for sneaker design.
mm,
It was done by the same producers. So
mm,
I ended up winning that. So I decided to move to the States. So I thought it'd be a great way to promote the show and try to build the brand up there. So that's when I really tried to wrap things up. So I went up there, I set up an office, I started hiring a team. Um, and, look, we had some really big wins at that time. We, did some things where we were featured, I was featured on New York Times, and we had a lot of coverage and press. Um, and, I think what ended up happening is there was a little bit of a sacrifice. The family was starting to struggle
mm,
because they didn't have the support system. In order for me to really scale things, I needed to spend a lot of time traveling because it's a really big country. Uh,
mm,
and then you had Australia, which was the biggest part of our business, starting to culturally have some cracks,
mm,
because, like I said, I wasn't there and my management style was different to the manager I had appointed. So
mm.
all lessons looking back. But you know what? An incredible time. Like, I mean, I've done some amazing things and I'm so proud of not only what I've built, but I guess the lessons along the way. And yeah, I
Yeah.
it's nice to look back at times because I'm always so focused on what I'm building.
Yeah. So with the US operation now, is there a team there? Is there an office or yeah, what does it look like at the moment?
So when I moved back, I shut down the office,
Mm,
kept the 3PL, and appointed a distributor.
hmm
And that was doing quite well initially. But then during COVID, our entire international business really slowed down over COVID. And I think that has to do with when you're a smaller brand, that the distributors need to invest a lot of time and effort to try to help build your brand. And in COVID,
mm,
people just didn't have that. People had no idea what was going to happen. So
mm,
now, the business really slowed down, particularly in the US. In
mm,
the last year now, we've started to ramp that business up again. We've appointed a new PR agency again. We've just gifted about 75 like micro influencers and a couple of really big celebrities in there. So that's awesome. We're starting to see a lot of momentum now heading back into that market, which is great.
mm. So then when did you pivot into retail as well? I know you've got a website now it's an e-commerce site, people can buy directly.
Yeah.
How did you move into that? And did it create any friction with wholesalers?
Yeah, so the plan was when I first launched in wholesale, it was to really get in front of key influential stores and try to build
Mm,
from there, because I knew it'd be very difficult to sort of just, a lot of people think you just launch a website and then everyone comes to the site
yes.
and you can sell products. It's not the case. I knew that because I'd already built a lot of websites for other people.
Yeah.
So I worked with a wholesale team to really get in front of a lot of really cool accounts. And that's what happened, particularly like I said, internationally, we had incredible accounts. We're in like 11 countries around the world with a very small
Mm,
team. Here in Australia, I think we probably at our peak, we had about 500 doors that we were selling to. So a lot of stores.
mm,
And then we transitioned to online being one of our biggest focuses. And the reason for that was not because I don't value wholesale. Wholesale is a really important part of the business. But I wanted to be able to control the narrative a lot more with about the brand. And so, we'd go and do these incredible trade shows and, like I said, win awards, and it looked so cool. And someone would come in and say, cool, I'll have 3 shoes and put it in my store and see how it goes. And it
mm,
loses the essence of what you've done.
mm,
And so that's where, decided to launch, to open up a retail store,
mm.
which was past COVID. So
Yeah.
once COVID was done, a lot of people were freaking out about whether retail was going to die, and I thought it was an incredible opportunity to look at experiential retail. And so
Mm.
that's why I opened up the store. It's got 17 digital screens. It's got like a digital gallery that we run there. Um,
Ah, where is the store located?
it's in Fitzroy,
Mm.
Church
Okay.
Street.
I got
So
to check it out when I'm in Melbourne next.
yeah, it's beautiful. I'm really proud of that store.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it. You know, when everyone else was
Mm,
like freaking out, and I thought, "Hey, this is a great opportunity to really lean into it and do something special." And the response has been incredible. The store's
mm.
beautiful. We've opened up since we've opened up a second store. And like I said, I mean, online's, even though I didn't push it initially, online is really where a lot of my strengths always been because
Yeah.
being a web developer. So once
Mm,
we really leaned into that, the business grew dramatically. Uh,
mm.
we set up a data lake, very, very early on, like 6 years ago. And so I guess taking that systems thinking, I've always felt that I'm a little bit of a Swiss Army knife, just like having lots of little tools to be able to push things forward. I think it's not the sharpest tool in
Yeah.
the box, but it's a very resourceful one.
Yeah. Well, considering you're so resourceful and you're so creative, you know how to design shoes, you know how to build websites. Like, how did you stop yourself from continuing to do that and delegate? Whereas for me, when I was running my business, I didn't have any skills other than people management. So I think I
Yeah.
naturally just delegated.
Yeah.
So do you kind of experience any of any challenge of letting go of that creativity or yeah, anything that's more hands-on?
Yeah, I mean, I think as the business gets bigger, that's definitely the challenge now because I think for
Mm.
a long time I could just do it myself. I've done every
Yeah.
role in the company, and I think that serves you very well when you're starting. It also allows you to grow very fast, which is what happened to us. But then you hit a ceiling because everything is anchoring to you, and then you become the bottleneck
Mm.
because a lot of people lean on you because you've been able to just hire people that don't have as much experience because you're like, I've got the experience, I'll just
Yeah.
teach them. But now my approach really is not the how, but the who. So who do
Hmm.
I need to bring in? Um, and instead of trying to default to solving things, it's really about working with the right people. And then when you're working with the right people, it's cool. What frameworks and delegation frameworks do I need to make sure I'm communicating what I'm expecting out of this engagement? That's probably been my current phase of leadership. Is
Mm.
very much around pulling myself out of the day to day, pulling myself out of the actual doing, and more around this is where we're going. Who are the right people on the bus that help us get there? And that has its own challenges too.
Mm. So what does your typical CEO date look like? How do you
My
spend your time
day,
now?
my
Mm.
day is completely jam-packed. So I've got an EA who manages my calendar.
Hmm.
I've given her guidance on what my perfect week looks like. So when I want to have internal meetings, external meetings, when I need to have my regular whips, what our team meetings are. And so yeah, she really plans that, and it's very much to the minute, which is great. So yeah, it's a lot, but at the same time, I'm very much into my own personal health, and so I regulate my nervous system. I'm always training and
Mm.
doing an ice bath or a sauna or something. So I really do look after my mental health just to make sure I can stay on top of it.
Mm.
Because yeah, it's something I do this. I really truly love what I do. And my goal is to do it with people that I enjoy spending time with too. So,
Mm.
so it's really important for me to not just chase the dollars and scale it to the point where I feel like I'm, gonna have a heart attack. It
Yeah.
doesn't serve me.
Was that a lesson that you learnt from earlier scaling and running really fast? Have you realized now that you rather, I guess, more sustainable growth than, and sacrifice and not to sacrifice your health? Yeah, I guess summarize what is your approach now with your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a cheesy answer to be honest with you, but like it's very much around the journey. And like, so I don't have this approach where I want to build a global brand, but I want to enjoy doing it. And,
Mm.
I'm not just trying to get there and go, right, I've done it. Because, there's been moments where, when we first sold to Nordstrom, everyone was celebrating around me and like, oh man, Vince, you're killing it. And you're, doing this. And it's like, man, like we're struggling to
Mm.
like survive at this point. This was 3 years
Mm.
in, right? And it looked great, but I was like, okay, I don't want to just build a brand. I want to build a profitable brand that's sustainable. So that then shifted the decisions that I made. And then we got profitable literally within 6 to 12 months.
Mm.
Now I look at the brand and say, right, I want to build a global brand, but without sacrificing my mental health my family, because I built this business so our family can benefit. And the
Mm.
best way for my family to benefit is also make sure that I'm there for them and with them. So I take a much more holistic approach now,
Yeah.
definitely through, I think the experience over the years.
Yeah.
I don't drink at all, and people think that's super weird at times. I haven't drunk for 9 years, but like I've drunk enough for a lifetime, right?
Mm.
Like doing all these trade shows and constantly being on the road, it's tough. You got to make choices.
Yeah. Well, it feels like we've both learnt the same lessons in life because I used to drink and I quit 2 years ago. I
Yeah,
also realized that, you only feel so happy about hitting the goal for that temporary moment. But if you burn
yeah,
yourself out to get there, it was not worth it at the end. So now I'm also believing in, so I have a concept called 360-degree success, which is the same word as holistic. So it's really interesting that we kind of landed on the same lessons in life. So thank you for advocating that because I too just feel like life is so much more better when you're not hungover and you can do all the things that you've always wanted to do, working out and all that. So yeah,
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about your EO experience because we met because of EO and we are on the EO
Yeah.
channel. How did you hear about EO and how has EO been for you?
So I was originally part of Coraggio, which is another peer-to-peer learning group. And although it was great, it was very much around giving advice, very different to EO, and it served me well for a while. And then one of the members that was on the board was also part of EO. And originally I was planning to join YPO.
Mm,
And so I left Coraggio to go YPO. But then, I put in an application. There were some things around, staff requirements and stuff that I didn't meet. I met the other ones, but I thought, what I've heard great things about EO, and I know a lot of people do EO and YPO. So
mm,
I joined EO based off that. Um, and I absolutely love it. I'm really quite surprised, and I don't like talking about it too much because otherwise I feel like a massive fanboy. But it has provided a huge amount of value in my life. My wife's also in the SLP,
mm,
and so she joined SLP almost immediately. So it just really helped us to communicate and navigate through, having no expectation to communicate what we do there, so being able to have that confidentiality. Also, when I go and do the trips, she doesn't, she gets it because she gets to do her own trips too. The kids have been on family EO retreats overseas too, so they love EO. So it's just, I think it's one of those things that, like, if you really put the work in, you don't realize how helpful it is to just be
mm,
able to face up and do the work.
mm,
I'm a big, I like forum, but my biggest thing is actually the 5% that I do myself,
mm,
and doing the deep dive worksheets myself, and then being
mm.
a part of the community. I'm now part of the board. I joined the board because I just felt like it was giving a lot, and I felt like it was probably a good thing to be able to give back a little bit.
Yeah, well, welcome to the board. I am on second year. I can't
Um,
imagine any other way. I was actually curious. I was like, oh, what does it feel like to be a member, actually? Because I've always been doing something
yeah,
because it's so beneficial that continue to do it. And that's why we got to hang out in the Global Leadership Conference in
totally.
Hawaii recently. So that's amazing. So as we wrap up, I would love to just hear your insight into everything that you've learned so far about business and success and everything else. I guess what is your what's the impact you want to leave on this earth, or what do you want to be
Yeah.
remembered for with all the work and all the things that you've done so far?
It's a funny question because I think I don't care too much for legacy at all. I never really have.
Mm,
Um, but I mean, my legacy for me is my kids and like the impact I've had on them. But I think the older I get, the more I've realized that I do want to put things out into the world and have no
mhm,
expectations of what comes back. So,
mm,
I think probably is this deep down feeling of just, I've done a lot. I've done some pretty incredible things where I feel like sharing some of the insights can be extremely valuable for some people. And
mm.
so that's probably my thing, is around being able to put it out there, and then if it connects with people, amazing. But it's certainly not, it's not ego or self-driven. So it just feels like the right thing to do for me in this stage of life.
Yeah. And if your kids were watching this episode right now, like what would you want to say to your kids? Like I guess a message or an advice that you would love to leave behind to them at this moment.
I love you guys so much. As simple as that. Like, I think do what you love. I think make sure that you're not too focused on any one thing. And, like I talk about life's triangle as being the most important thing for me. I've sort of distilled it into three things. It's personal, relationships, and that what I call value exchange. And so that's either, when you look at your personal, that's your own personal relationship, mental, physical, spiritual, spirituality. And then from relationships, it could be your family, it could be friends, it could be a dog, whatever that is basically outside of you, the relationship you have. That could also be church or community, whatever it is. And then value exchange is how you exchange between those. So it's around, generally it's around money. What do you do to be able to provide value between? I think if you just focus on those three areas, and all three are very important, you get to sort of get through life much easier.
All right. Well, I have a last question. I thought it was my last question 2 questions ago, but
Yeah.
what's next for Rollie? Any future plans that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still super focused on building a global brand. So that's what we're doing. Like I said, we've got a lot of celebrity influencers that we're working with, got a lot of new products coming out. So it's really exciting to, I think when you're starting out in the early days, it's very much cool, business plan, who's the target audience and all of those things. I think the older I get, the more I realize the business is a reflection of me and who I am, right? When I did the company values, I'm like, these are my values. And so I think now at a design perspective, I'm looking at it and going, cool, what product do I actually really care about? And start to put some of that product out. So I'm very excited for that next phase.
Well, thank you so much, Vince. You're so inspirational. You are always giving out all that wisdom. Even that last answer was full of wisdom. So thank you so much. And I will make sure to put all your details in the description of the YouTube video and, of course, your website. Check it out. I was lucky to receive a pair of shoes personalized for EO Sydney as a board member.
Cool.
I actually haven't worn it yet, but I'm motivated to wear it now after hearing your
awesome.
story. So thank you so much for your time today, Vince.
No worries. Thanks for having me.